What's up everybody, it's Scapegoat here, and in this next video we are going to be continuing our Odin 2 series, and we are going to be going over the modulator section. So without further ado, let's get started. So moving over to this section in the bottom left hand corner, we have these envelopes, and these envelopes have various different purposes. You have your amp envelope over here. The amp envelope is hardwired to control the volume curve of the voice. Then you have your filter envelope. The filter envelope is hardwired to modulate the frequencies of the various filter modules. And then over on the other side, we have the mod envelope. The mod envelope is essentially a freely assignable modulation source. You have your global envelope, which is different from the other envelopes in that it exists only once for all voices. And so you might want to use this when you want the modulation not to diverge when you have different voices going on in your patch. So next you have your attack. The attack determines the time the envelope takes from the start to the first peak. Then you have the decay, and the decay controls the time the envelope will take to fall to the sustain value after the attack reached its highest point. Then you have your sustain, and the sustain is going to determine the level that the envelope will fall to after the decay section. And then you have your release, and the release is going to control the time the envelope will take to fall to 0 after the MIDI key was released. Lastly, you have this ADSR loop over here, and the loop parameter is going to give you the option to start the attack section again after the decay is finished. This is going to create a sort of like an LFO type of modulation. And speaking of LFOs, we have the low frequency oscillator section down here. And so for your LFO section, basically a low frequency oscillator is a module that operates on such a low frequency it's beyond the capabilities of human hearing. Although you can't really get sound out of it, it's actually really good for modulating. But to go over the parameters here, we have the LFO frequency, which the frequency knob is very similar to, say, like the time knob from the delay on the FX section. It's measured in hertz, and it's essentially the speed of the LFO or modulation source. And you can also sync it to your DAW right here. You have your waveform selector, which it might be hard to see here based on how I have it zoomed in, but you have a bunch of different waveforms you can pick. And then you have a reset, which is going to reset the LFO to the beginning of the wave on the start of the note. Under that, you're going to have a little XY pad over here, and that XY pad is really cool because it's essentially a convenient way to combine two different modulation sources that are independent of each other. And so you can use the mouse here to sort of morph in between them using this little XY panel over here. And you can also control and dial it in with these knobs as well. Next to that, you have the mod wheel and the pitch bend. And so if you've used other synths in the past, they basically work the same way. Your pitch bend essentially can pitch the sound up or down in semitones, and the pitch bend range can be adjusted down here in this little box over here. And then you have the mod wheel, which the mod wheel is a freely assignable modulation source. You can do all kinds of different things if you want to do more like live performance type of stuff, and if you have a MIDI keyboard that has a mod wheel, it's pretty cool for stuff like that. Now next to that, you have your glide and master knob, and those actually are covered in the global settings chapter, but I'm going to go ahead and cover them here as well. So your glide is essentially going to create this sort of slide, almost like a legato effect from when you're pressing down the note from one note to the next as you're playing. And the master knob is going to control the output gain of the entire synth. And that basically covers the modulator section. And in the next one, we are going to be going over the modulation matrix. So stay posted for that one. And as always, I hope you found this one helpful. Till next time.